You ever come across a review that's so incredibly harsh, it's actually more entertaining than the thing it's reviewing? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're not really here to talk about the TV show itself. Instead, we're going to break down the powerful, and let's be honest, absolutely brutal critique from one YouTuber who just completely dismantled it. So, how did he pull it off? We're going to follow his argument beat for beat. We'll start with his main point, this whole idea of civilization. Then we'll get into how he sets up this huge clash between the city and the suburbs. From there, we'll look at his incredibly blunt critique of the main character, dig into the one scene he uses as his ultimate proof, and you'll definitely want to stick around for his final devastating verdict. So, what's the big idea that drives this whole thing? Well, it all comes down to one single, really important concept. This line right here, this is basically the key to his entire argument. For this reviewer, civilization isn't just a backdrop, it's a test. And in his view, the show's protagonist isn't just failing the test. She doesn't even seem to realize she's taking it. Okay, so here's where he really takes issue with the show. He says the show wants you to feel like the suburbs are this creepy, judgmental place. But according to him, the only thing that's actually creepy is watching a main character who has like zero clue how to act in a normal functioning community. And this whole civilization thing, it's not just some abstract idea for him. No, he paints it as a literal battle between two completely different worlds, the city and the suburbs. I mean, just look at this comparison. It is not subtle at all, is it? On one side, he paints the suburbs as the absolute peak of civilization. It's safe, it's orderly, it's full of community. And the other side? He literally calls the city a rat-infested den of crime, a gutter, a place defined by trash and drive-by shootings. For him, there is absolutely no middle ground. You can just feel the sarcasm dripping off this quote, right? He's basically saying, wait, you've escaped what I call a total nightmare and landed in paradise? And you're the one with the problem? To him, her struggle to fit in isn't just weird, it makes absolutely no sense. So, you know that moment in the show when the protagonist complains that every day is the same? Well, the reviewer sees that as something way deeper. He thinks she's not just bored, she's rejecting the very structure and stability that, in his opinion, holds a civilized society together. All right, so with all of that groundwork laid out, the reviewer just takes the gloves off and goes straight after the main character. And his criticism gets very personal. I mean, yeah, it doesn't get much more blunt than that, does it? And this isn't just some throwaway line. This kind of intense personal dislike for the character runs through his entire review. And he doesn't just leave it there. He builds this whole case against her with a laundry list of flaws. He doesn't just call her insufferable. He calls her a manipulative, lazy cow, a bad mom, and says she has this huge chip on her shoulder. He argues that she finds regular, friendly people weird and is, at her very core, completely incapable of living in what he calls civilization. And this is where his argument gets really wild. He basically claims the show fails so badly that it ends up doing the exact opposite of what it intended. The so-called creepy neighbors actually come off looking like great people, while the protagonist, the person we're supposed to be rooting for, comes across as the real villain of the story. Now, to really hammer this home, he doesn't just stick to big ideas. He zooms in on one specific scene that he presents as like Exhibit A, in his case against the protagonist and the show itself. Okay, so here's how he breaks it down, and to him, it's all perfectly logical. Step 1, she's lurking around someone else's property late at night. Step 2, the homeowner sees this and makes what he calls a perfectly legitimate call to the police. Step 3, the police show up and do their job. So, for the reviewer, the only part that doesn't make sense is Step 4, the protagonist's complete outrage, which he sees as a totally unhinged reaction to a problem she created herself. This right here is him basically turning to the camera and challenging the show's writers directly. He's saying, look, if you wanted us to think the neighbor was a bad guy, why did you write a scene where he was actually right? You proved his point for him. And for him, the real injustice in this scene isn't the 911 call. No, it's the fact that she gets away with it. He argues the actual problem here is the special treatment she gets just because the cops happen to know her husband. All right, so after laying all this out, the civilization theory, the flawed protagonist, that whole trespassing scene, how does he wrap it all up? Well, he combines it all into one final, absolutely crushing judgment. And listen to this, because this quote pretty much sums up his entire diagnosis. At this point, he's not even just critiquing a TV show anymore. He's basically psychoanalyzing the creators. He's claiming they are the ones with the problem and that they just projected their own issues onto the characters without ever realizing it. And his final thoughts are, well, they're just savage. He calls the show a massive pile of trash made by people who blame everyone else for their own issues. He says the characters are psychotic lunatics. And his only takeaway? A final sarcastic jab that a cul-de-sac seems like a pretty nice place to live as long as you can keep people like that out of it. And for his final insult, he basically throws the show onto a pile with works from other creators that he clearly can't stand. It's his ultimate condemnation, placing it in his personal hall of shame for what he thinks is just fundamentally broken storytelling. Which kind of leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? We just spent some time exploring one person's incredibly powerful opinion. It really makes you wonder, in our world of non-stop online takes, when does a simple review stop being about a TV show and start becoming a battleground for much bigger ideas about our culture, our society, and, well, civilization itself? What do you think?